10 years ago, I think we all agreed that social didn't really impact SEO, right? Directly, maybe, or there was certain times, ebbs and flows when it didn't, in terms of like maybe direct ranking, things like that. But now I think was Google really focuses on the customer journey, and social is an important part of that journey, right? People are going there to learn about, become aware of problems that they have, understand the types of solutions, the options. And I think most importantly right now is seeing other customer stories, right? So that's where PR comes into play. Although we don't manage social, we like to see clients share the customer stories or the data and the research that we help them build, to share on social, or most importantly, have others share it, right? So it's that organic sharing that I think Google's really looking out for right now, and those are the signals that are, I think, weren't here before that are here now because of AI.
You are listening to Power Marketing with Kevin Lee. Kevin and his agency Did It have helped thousands of businesses win through superior marketing, as have his books, articles, speaking engagements, and the E-Marketing Association Power Marketing podcasts. Here's Kevin.
So Kevin Rowe and I will both be at PubCon shortly, speaking about SEO and its various flavors in digital marketing. So I'm super excited to have him on to talk about the evolution of SEO. This is a crazy last year, and it's going to be a crazy 2024, I think, for SEO. And so before we jump into the questions, why don't you give your elevator pitch on yourself and what PureLinq does?
Sure. I'm Kevin Rowe, founder and head of digital PR strategy for PureLinq. PureLinq, actually, I founded PureLinq as a link building company originally, because I had an agency at the time. We were enterprise SEO agency. We were doing projects for like Hyatt Hotels, Siemens, Citrix, things like that. And link building was always a pain point. There was never really any vendors out there that could do a good job with it. So I decided to productize and launch my own service after doing it for ourselves and our clients for a while. Link building, there was definitely an amazing time between, up till 2015. Link building, almost everything you could do was working and was great when you do quality work. But as Google started to get really, and it's a lot of it is just natural outreach and pitching, resource lists, things like that. But as Google started to become much more advanced, I think they've started to integrate AI into their system a lot longer ago than they started to admit to it.
Yeah.
And that's why I think digital PR has become such an important part of SEO now. PR and SEO is now really integrated and goes hand in hand very heavily. So PureLinq a couple years ago, I was actually doing a lot of integrated SEO and PR work as a part of our, we called it link building, but really it was PR. And because I think link building was like the phrase of the day, but realistically it was PR. And a couple of years ago, we pivoted and started full focus very heavily and fully on PR and how SEO and PR are integrated together along a customer journey.
Yeah, well, Did It acquired 3 PR agencies because they understood storytelling, and they also tended to have strategic relationships. And it also, this idea of being able to come at it from both angles opened up budget from a content creation and content syndication perspective that otherwise wouldn't have been available if you just called it SEO or you
Yeah.
just called it link building. And then when you layered social media into it, and the fact that some of the created content would also have social media legs, that really, then you just have to be holistic about it. I don't know if you've also sort of started to do that as well, as make sure that the clients understand that content creation or content co-creation, has a lot of places that it can sit and a lot of things that it can accomplish above and beyond digital PR. Would you agree with that?
100%. I think, 10 years ago, I think we all agreed that social didn't really impact SEO, right? Directly, maybe, or there was certain times, ebbs and flows when it didn't, in terms of like maybe direct ranking, things like that. But now I think was Google really focuses on the customer journey, and social is an important part of that journey, right? People are going there to learn about, become aware of problems that they have, understand the types of solutions, the options. And I think most importantly right now is seeing other customer stories, right? So that's where PR comes into play. Although, we don't manage social, we like to see clients, share the customer stories or the data and their research that we help them build, to share on social, or most importantly, have others share it, right? So it's that organic sharing that I think Google's really looking out for right now. And those are the signals that I think weren't here before that are here now because of AI.
Yeah, I would agree 100% because I've been speaking almost exclusively for the last 6 months or so about the future proofing of SEO as it relates to LLM visibility, right? Because you want to be the answer if a chatbot is asked a question. And for that, digital PR, syndicated content, and social content that doesn't even create links at all. It just has mentions and discussions, including potentially even crawled YouTube transcripts and podcast transcripts. We don't know for sure what's getting ingested by the LLMs. We just know that the LLMs are on a quest for information, and the more information they get, that's positive about a brand and what that brand does and the problems it solves, the more likely you are to show up when it gets asked. So I've been really espousing digital PR, not only because we bought the PR agencies for did it, but it's just sort of it's beyond Barnacle SEO. I mean, Barnacle SEO has been around for a long time, right?
Yeah.
The idea you want to control the SERP by syndicating out content and doing digital PR, but I think it's reached a whole new level of importance to think about SEO through a digital PR lens.
Yeah, I think it's reputation. I just wrote an article for Search Engine Land. What is digital PR for SEO? And the big argument, it isn't link building. It's not. Links are an important part of it, but the links can't fit outside the context of the customer story. Um, and how people are talking about the brand and how people are. I think, and from what I've seen, is that you know, there's different layers of expertise and reputation, right? There's the site, the content, the company, which is different, and the individuals or entities behind the whole thing, right? And Google, I think, understands those associations and the relationship between them now, and that's why PR is becoming so effective in SEO and in just kind of inseparable, and it's becoming more integrated. I went to school for integrated marketing communications in Ithaca College, the Park School. And back then we were learning about like the importance of integrating marketing comms. And then I get out of school and I was obsessed with SEO and search and paid. And that's not really integrated. It was all channel marketing strategy. And but now it's coming around to where this integrated approach is just, there's no way around it. It's almost a requirement.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm thinking back now. I can remember it. It's been about 10 years ago when people first started to have this sort of conspiracy theory around Google and Bing, and Google in particular, understanding authorship, not just the domain on which something sits, right? So
Yeah.
understanding a specific reporter at the New York Times or USA Today and their content, and understanding the nuances between their content and their subject matter expertise. And it really sort of went away for a while where people stopped talking about that, and because there was really no evidence to support it at that point in time 10 years ago. But I think now with the LLMs and with Gemini, and I think probably that there's some pretty good signal in there as to not just where does the content sit, but who wrote it.
Do you remember when the authorship, all the authorship markup was in, and then Google almost immediately, a few months after, said, no, you can get rid of the authorship markup.
Exactly. Yeah.
That's when they started to integrate the AI. I guarantee it. Guarantee 190% sure of it. That's when
Yeah,
they started
exactly.
getting AI then.
Right, right. Yeah. So there was probably some disinformation going on at that point, because they didn't need the schema markup, right? Or either they knew who was writing what.
Yep. I think that was the test to see like, all right, if somebody actually marked it up, does it actually correlate to, or, is there some relationship or truth behind that related to how our AI works?
Mhm.
I think they were so far ahead of AI, 10, around that time. It was ridiculous. It was crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Any thoughts on they just released in the last couple of days information on the Gemini app for Android and iOS being available as sort of a replacement for voice search, right?
Mhm.
Because that's a sort of risk-free place that Google can experiment with AI because for voice search on a mobile device, they sometimes show a SERP, but a lot of times they skip it. And certainly on a local home device, they never showed a SERP, right? They would just answer the question for you. And Google Voice sort of sucked in both of those locations. So it doesn't have to be that much better to get, I think, consumers excited about using it. And do you think that that'll be sort of the foundation on which they build is voice search?
So here's my thoughts around this. About 2 years ago, I tried to build my own AI company. About a year before ChatGPT came out, AI-based smart kitchen. And we got really obsessed with it. Um, I think that and we were trying to build train a model based on images so basically it was you were able to scan your products into your smart pantry, and then it would automatically pick it up as you put it in, training it against like just pictures and images, right, as opposed to actual products scanning by in cameras. It's different types of data and data sets. So I think the voice goes deeper. I think it's super important. Voice and voice, you know, all this language-based models are a cornerstone and a different type of data that they need to build the future of their whole product. I think there's um, we're going to want these assistants, right? And I think that talking to an assistant is much easier than typing it in. Like my Google Home, I always ask my Google Home about things like, what is this? What is that? There's certain use cases for the Google Home. They need to, if they, for be the future of search, this assistant, this help that they're really doing. They're helping you comb through this information and give you the exact information you need when you need it, right? I don't think there's any way around it that it's got to be voice based at some point, right? It's just, and they need that data now. So I think that because of the type of data they need, to do that and to train, I don't think that's going away. And I think that's critical that they get out there. Even if it's bad now, they need to get more information to train it quicker, you know?
Yeah. So what are the implications, do you think, for the SEO community and business owners, right? Because for the time being, I think the consumers will still probably prefer to have the control of looking at a SERP and feeling like they're the ones empowered to make that final choice. But as the voice-based chatbots get better and better, you may just ask, what's the best pizzeria on the Upper West Side of Manhattan, and just take it at its word, right? And not even bother with the SERP.
Um, I think we like options. I think there's a trust issue, and options alleviate the trust. Um, I think there's going to be visual and audio based, like the Google for the kitchen, the Google home screen. For some reason, I forget the name, but I think there needs to be an integration of visual and audio together, like the Google Home hub. So
Right.
whether that's whatever that might look like in the future, I think we need options and we need lists and certain, it's just the intent. And I think a level of trust that we have in Google, right? And it depends on the topic and the subject, right? So, um, you know, there's certain things where we want like one option, but there's other things directional, right? Transactional, directional, and informational. So I think it'll really depend on the situation, but I can't see it for me at least. Like if you're in the kitchen, you want a recipe, and you're going to say, "Hey Google," and I do this the other day. How long should I boil eggs for? Or, how can what's the best recipe, or what's the recipe for chicken and with chicken broth and onions or whatever? Google will just give you a couple of options. Sometimes they'll even give you just one recipe and you'll kind of go with it, right? So I think, but you've got to be able to, I think, go over there, look at it, get a screen to engage, but the voice has to be a component of that just because it's I think it makes our lives easier.
Yeah, I think it's also always fun an SEO professional who puts the consumer first, right? To also think about, well, what would I be doing as a Google engineer who also puts the consumer first, and how can we align interests there? And I looked at the helpful content update when it rolled out in its various phases last year, and I feel like I agree with you in that there were big implications of that data had been processed via AI.
Mhm.
Because if you sort of think about helpful content and the uniqueness of content, right, as being less likely to have been AI generated if it's unique and new, it probably puts an extra emphasis on human generated content that is more difficult to fake, like, for example, the transcript of this video, right, or an audio podcast, in comparison to something that's purely text based, which is more likely to have been AI augmented and potentially less likely to be helpful. Now, they haven't said definitively that they're anti-AI generated content. As long as it's good, they haven't really sort of drawn a line in Google. But when you look at the helpful content update, if you were to take content that had not been further improved by a human and posted that, you probably wouldn't have fared well under the helpful content update. So, there are exceptions, obviously, but if you sort of look thematically, I have a feeling the helpful content update was influenced to some extent by some back end AI. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, the way I look at it with AI, what it's done is it's taken this devalued the signals and increased the value of the value the content had inherently. So
Right.
what that means is for me is Google's AI now understands what that topic is, what other peoples are saying about that topic, like what's the standard of for that topic, and
Hmm.
then it reads understands the topics like in that context of like what other experts and key experts in the industry are saying about it, that it's different, that it's helpful, that it's transformational as well. I think there's something to do with transformational, like, is it helpful and different? And then is that thing that's new, helpful and different, is it supported by facts or another expert opinion and another POV, right? So um, I don't think the search engines could understand what's helpful without understanding the content in and of itself inherently. I mean, you could do maybe structural, like, is this actionable, right? Does it have change in it, right? Does it invoke change? But it's like without, how can you really understand the entity and the expert behind it, and how they, if that content is helpful, if that expert doesn't have those experiences
Right.
associated with it, I don't think you can separate the two. And I think you need AI for that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I feel like there's maybe a resurgence in mixing back in journalistic style writing. Back in the early days of SEO, we told everybody inverted pyramid style is the way you want to create the content. And for a while, that sort of fell a little bit out of favor, and you could do narrative style as well. And so say, well, the search engines will find it and they'll understand that, it's okay if you get to the end of the story before you realize the butler killed the billionaire, right? As opposed to the headline being Butler kills billionaire, which is inverted pyramid style. But I feel like AIs sort of have a preference for that, getting the meaty, juicy stuff up front, right? And then supporting it with the facts later, which is more of a journalistic style. Do you agree that there's sort of a little bit of a return to the roots of journalistic style writing?
I do. I've been thinking about in terms of like transformational journalism, transformational content. If you look at a lot of, if you read through a lot of, New York Times or Fast Company or whatever, a lot of that is all about how you've enacted change and how you've changed something and how other people can change something, right? I think it's more along those lines now. It's not, and then how easily user experience, how easy it to scan, right? You see a lot of the key insights coming up now, and people really love those key insights at the top of their content. Make it scannable, getting right to the point as well, right? And I think journalism does a good job with that, or is supposed to. You'll see a lot of what is type content being put into like with a short paragraph definition, right? It's punchy to the point. And then uh, I also think it has to do with a relationship to, I think a lot of it has to go beyond journalism. Now it's talking about, again, the customer's journey, where they're at the journey, how that content fits at different stages of the journey, and what that person needs for the different stages.
So one of the challenges with digital PR is when the client or marketer is in a category that, let's just say, it's not quite as sexy, right? So, I mean, everybody would love to be in the cosmetics or fashion industry, but accounting, maybe not so much. What the latest FASB rulings are or IRS opinion letters might not be exciting to everybody, but of course, it's super important to that community. So, how do you recommend that folks who are sort of having creator block, and I won't call it writer's block because these days you may be doing videos or other sources of content, but if you're having creator block and you're in a category that, maybe it's a little bit more difficult to come up with content ideas, how do you break that creator block with clients?
So I have some prompts I like to use in ChatGPT, to be honest. Like I get up, I write every morning. I get up 5 a.m., 6 a.m. or whatever, and I'll write until like 8:39 or something like that. And I always have trouble getting started. I'll start with ChatGPT and I'll like, what is this? I'll ask basic questions to it and then get my juices flowing that way. And then that kind of helps me think about the topic or frame it or keep things simple because I get, you can see now I maybe think about things pretty complexly and it's not always a good thing. And then trend analysis, I always like to I'm a big advocate of, starting the engine, pulling the cord to get that lawnmower started. I like to look at trends, stuff like that as well. ChatGPT has been a great just to like get me focused sometimes and then look at the trends, see what's trending. BuzzSumo is a great tool. I'm sure you know, like,
Yeah, sure.
just kind of pop through there, see what's new, what's interesting. And then usually it's like, your brain will start, you just got to get your brain working around it. That's just how our brains work. Sometimes it's like just need some little triggers to point it in the right direction. So I think those help for me.
Yeah, one interesting hack, which I'm not sure will continue to be open. It's a similar loophole or potential hack to what used to happen in the early days of autocomplete hacking, right? Which is where you could, if you had enough people train and autocomplete, the machine learning at Google would sort of start to use the one that it saw a lot, right, as the autocomplete. And there's some evidence that, particularly in long tail related chatbot queries, that one's interaction with the chatbot actually, of course, also trains the chatbot, right? And therefore influences future engagements with the chatbot. And so, we'd seen some, let's say, gray hat examples of potentially, rather than just create content for the LLM to crawl, one is, there are people being deployed to essentially train the AI through interaction with the chatbot, right? Which of course is like a huge gaping hole from the perspective of black hat activity. And so it'll be interesting to see how long that hole remains open. Maybe I shouldn't be talking about it in a podcast environment, but the idea that the chatbot learns from humans and gets smarter, right, as a result of its interaction with humans, and that's the foundational element of the chatbot. And so one can essentially potentially guide the chatbot and improve it in directions that you want it improved in, especially if you deploy some human resources against it, or potentially even bot resources which aren't even human but act like humans. So I hope that gets shut down, because obviously there's the potential for abuse there, and there'll be another wave of black hat activity that'll need to get shut down by ChatGPT and by Google with the Gemini product.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. I think I think it's just, uh, that's why I think it's going to be important to get real data in there, and not just like written data, like people engaging with it from a written perspective. It's like how people really use this tool in real life, right? And that's where I think the voice information comes in, the quality, data quality assurance, right? Um, I think if it has visual data, right, and if it has audio data and it has it in real life, I believe it's just going to get smarter and be able to filter that out. Like if I'm a if I'm an SEO, I think everyone's had this kind of feeling. If I'm an SEO and I'm logged into Google under my Gmail and I'm doing link building for this client, Google's going to know. I'm sure you've heard those people talk about it like that, right? Um, uh, but I'm hoping, I would expect that the AI is going to get to a point where it'll know, hey, this person is doing it for the sake of improving their lives and what they're doing and their activity, and use it in their what they're actually doing, versus this is a person doing like a little research and trying to, you know, maybe feed me information. I feel like that should be a necessary part of the entire algorithm or
Right, right.
models.
Agreed. One of the things that, I've found helpful over the years, I'd love your perspective on it, is, when you're engaging in content creation that I guess falls under the PR or digital PR or influencer content, which is sometimes paid, the clients want sort of KPIs that they can use. And I've never been a huge fan of media equivalence, which was this idea like, oh, if I bought an ad in this place, it would have cost me X, and therefore that's what I should value it at. But at the same time, there are a bunch of other KPIs that one could use to really look intelligently at let's call it a placement, right? And obviously some placements will deliver direct visibility, some placements will deliver direct clicks, right? Even if it's a no follow link. And so have you come up with any good frameworks for that for clients so that they can sort of look at your placement and say, here are the 5 ways that it potentially helped us?
I I'm an advocate of not, not treating each specific publication like its own individual channel with its own performance. I think it has to do with how all of the channels work together. What is the overall strategy performance versus what each individual component of it is together, right? So it's is a customer will in their journey, they'll first become aware of the problem through word of mouth or through the person here. Then they'll go out to a publication, maybe read a little bit more about that, right? And then to maybe understand the problem a little bit deeper. Then they'll get into the discovery phase or consideration phase where they're considering all the options. I think it has to be in the context of that journey. And then does the content, overall content program, that general strategy impact brand search? I think that's actually a really important part of this, and action.
Hmm.
So brand search, I actually did an experiment. I do this I've done this to my own site a couple times, PureLinq, where I've increased brand search volume. But that was my entire intent. Like, because not through like last click attribution modeling or latent attribution modeling or any sort of variations of it in between, but like is even the tools when you do remarketing, it doesn't attribute it, even through view through conversion rates. Like you don't see it. But what
Yeah.
you can see is lift analysis. Do a lift analysis and watch your brand traffic increase, or you keep it around a specific branded, more micro branded things, like a branded research report. So, did its state of SEO or state of digital PR study, right? And then you have publications mention the brand name of the did it state of PR study, and then somebody goes from that reading that article and only reading that one metric in the publication, then goes to Google and searches it out, right? So I think that, and I also think that's a major ranking factor for sure. So that's kind of any part of the campaign. I think that brand search volume is the ultimate kind of indicator right now of is the overall campaign working, not is this one media working, right? It's the strategy.
Yeah, yeah, it's really interesting you bring that up in an earned media context because it's one of my favorite ways to actually do holdout studies in paid media, right? Because again, a person gets curious as a result of seeing an ad or hearing an ad or engaging with a brand in a paid environment. And, one of the things you can do in paid media is choose a city and like triple up on Spotify or triple up on YouTube advertising. And you can watch your brand search query volume overall, but you can at least see the clicks as to geo, right? And you can say, oh, well, we got a huge surge of people from Cincinnati. That's where we were doing heavy radio advertising. And we saw another surge of people in Los Angeles, and that's where we were doing YouTube advertising, right? And then you can actually use it to create, even if you're a medium-sized brand and you can't afford to do a full fractional factorial design or econometric model, you can still sort of, use the brand search click volume and direct navigation volume as a leading indicator, right? Is your paid media working, or is your creative resonating? Like a lot of these factors that are head scratchers, unless you can spend $1 million a month, right?
Yep.
You can actually get a pretty good directional sense. So I love the fact that you're saying, no, it's also great for earned media, right? You can use it as an earned media proxy for success. That's
100%.
for sure.
Yeah, I think it's probably more prominent when you do like, banner advertisements and things like that. But I think if you really keep a hyper-focused program, even thought leadership is part of, earned in a way. It's not like quite earned in terms of like I'm getting a link from somebody else saying it.
Yeah,
Thought leadership can also drive people to go somewhere and search. I was given a presentation at PubCon last year, and while I was on stage, people were asking me, "Well, what is a good template for an outreach email?" When you're pitching. I just so happened to write an article that week for Search Engine Journal about how to do outreach for link building. And so I was like, Google Kevin Rowe Search Engine Journal, and then go to my author page and do it. And a lot of people did it. You can,
right.
you can measure it. So it's even from the real world too. It's not even just for thought leadership and things like that. It's not just from written.
Yeah. So, what do you do when one of your clients, or maybe it's a prospect, uh, hasn't sort of decided internally who the subject matter expert or thought leader is, and you sort of need somebody to be the face of the brand? Um, you don't need it, but it's easier to add a human face to a brand than it is to sort of do the same amount of digital PR work purely on the brand. And are there any solutions to that?
Yeah, a lot of clients do. Well, the executives don't have time, or the marketing team's overwhelmed and don't have time to do it. And they just need turnkey solutions. I turn to data and
Mhm.
research. Um, I started to build a data team specifically for this because I think the stats were something like I think something like 60% of journalists said they want data, or they do want experts. Yes, journalists want PR people to help them find experts and expertise to help guide their
Right,
stories or support their stories, but they also want data, research, visual graphics. And that can be associated with the brand and not the expert, the individual expert.
right.
I'm trying to look up the exact metric here. 68% of journalists want to see original research in their data pitches.
That's a
Uh,
great point.
and I get you can add commentary on it from internal experts and things like that and send it. And maybe that's a good way to like just get quick insights from experts, right? Or some of the very busy people. Unfortunately, like that's a bottleneck too, because speed is like so important for journalists. So I think data is how I handle that bottleneck.
Great, great. So, anything that has you excited about the rest of 2024? We're early in yet, but it seems like it's going to be a busy year for everybody in digital marketing.
Um, well, an interesting trend. I was looking at Google Trends and saw like I'd say in the last 5 year, 10x increase in just people's interest in digital PR for SEO. Um, just that idea, like in Google Trends, that search volume for digital PR SEO or PR SEO, as like there's people interested. So you don't actually have to like sell it the idea as hard. It's like people are interested and there's a demand for it now as opposed to generating, driving demand for it and then training people on it, which, I just want to talk about this stuff. I don't want, I just like talking about it. So I think that trend is really interesting. I think that also in media, the trend of trust right now is really important. And there's lower trust in the media. There's lower trust in, I think, influencers as well. Like consumers and buyers are They're more skeptical now than ever before, and I think that came from the pandemic. We got so used to the news, everyone was so engulfed in the news and what's a trustworthy source versus not. Like it changed how 90% of the world thinks about experts and trust. So I think that I'm really interested, and I find it really interesting that and an opportunity as well to like really build trust, build your own trust, your own expertise, establish yourself as an expert. This idea of thought leadership, I think, it was always interesting. It's different than becoming an influencer. I call it a key
Yeah.
opinion leader, right? It's a key opinion leader, a thought leader, someone that can influence others to take action. I believe there's a huge opportunity for people to do that right now, to step out, through earned media. So I feel, I feel there's an opportunity for everyone to build expertise. So if you Google Kevin Rowe search engine journal, for example, you'll see, see, I did it. You'll see that I wrote this article, I forgot the title of it, but how to evaluate your expertise to be a journalist expert source, something like that. It's on my bio. It's on my author page. And one of the things I noted was like, you have to produce information and research and content for other people to become an expert. So I think that what could be interesting is, I believe that people already know this. I don't feel like I've said anything, amazing when I say this. I think people already know that. There's more people producing data. There's more people wanting to build their expertise. That article kind of lays out what you need to look at and reflect on for yourself to, really be seen as an expert for journalists. But, I think there's going to be a new wave of expert-led content coming as a result of this need, right? That this need for, or this lack of trust and the need to produce content that is trusted in order to get consumers to take action.
Yeah, that's a great point, especially when there's going to be a wave of potentially AI generated content that isn't attached to a human. The fact that a subject matter expert can go and say, no, I'm saying this and I'm betting my reputation on it, right? To some extent, that's going to float that up to the surface for journalists, but also for the consumer. So I really appreciate you sharing all your wisdom with us, Kevin, and look forward to seeing you at PubCon and continuing the conversation.
Thanks, Kevin. Nice to meet you.
Kevin Lee's Power Marketing is available on all your favorite podcast networks. Kevin loves helping businesses excel at marketing. Having marketing challenges? Just like Santa in The Miracle on 34th Street, if Kevin can't help you, he'll know someone who can. Find him on LinkedIn, subscribe, or follow.